Welcome to CISO Insiders podcast, powered by GRC Consulting. In this podcast, we'll be interviewing leading CISOs and security leaders in the industry for light, eye-level conversations. Here, they share advice and tips, talk about their biggest accomplishments and failures, favorite drinks, key influencers, and much more. We encourage you to walk away with at least one insight that will help you better yourself or your business. Thank you for joining us, and we hope you enjoyed today's episode. For more content, please check us out on social media.
Welcome, everybody. Today I'm speaking with Jeremy Peaks. Jeremy is the current head of information security, head of security engineering over at EROAD, a company based out of New Zealand. And looking at your bio, Jeremy, I see that you kind of grew from, the development scene. You held a few positions as a group leader, a software development manager. I know you founded a company at one point. Maybe you could, introduce yourself and provide some additional context to this conversation.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you, and hi, Ben. So I've been in the industry, I guess, for a bit over 20 years now. As you say, I started off with my interest in software engineering. So I was kind of got into the world through software development, various different languages around there, but always had an interest in cybersecurity, and then into various leadership roles and that kind of thing, and eventually led into full-time security positions.
Okay, thank you for that. And we'll definitely want to touch more about that transition from the development space into the cybersecurity, because I find that always interesting, because it's not your common route, I would say. So definitely would want to touch more about that going forward. Before we get started, I just wanted to mention here for your sake and for our listeners' sake, that this podcast is mostly will be focused about your journey, not specifically the role that you occupy right now. And the intent is really to share information and potentially educate our listeners out there. And with that, I always like to start off with a couple of icebreaker questions here. If you're willing to share your marital status and favorite drink, that would be excellent.
Sure. Yeah, no problem. Yeah, I've been married for about 12 years now. My wife is also in the tech industry. Actually, she's a QA chapter lead for a bank. So we had some interesting topic of conversations over dinner and that kind of stuff. But yeah, she's also really interested in security, so we quite often talk about that kind of thing. Got a couple of kids. One, my son age 10, and my daughter's age 5. And my favorite drink would be whiskey, mainly Scotch. But I'm kind of experimenting into all kinds of other interesting, weird, and wonderful ones.
Okay, thank you for that. And I'm hoping you're not boring your kids too much at dinner time with talks about cybersecurity and the tech industry. I know for us, they mostly talk about Minecraft and things of that nature right now.
Yeah, well, I mean, my son bores us enough with his conversations about gaming, so we can get our own back.
Yeah, gaming, YouTubers, famous YouTubers, and whatnot. Same here.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Let's dive right in. Looking back at your career, what's the one thing you wish you'd known before you began it?
Yeah, probably that there was actually a full-time role in cybersecurity, but it didn't really kind of occur to me right at the beginning. So I graduated in 2001, and of course there were security roles around, but it just wasn't really talked about in the circles I was in, and the universities, particularly at the time, but I think it's even still happening really, we're really pushing things like going into programming, software development, that kind of thing. So I think I have a little bit of regret that I didn't start straight out in full-time cybersecurity, but I think also it has given me really, really good insights and experience by going through the software development journey. I understand how software is built, what the teams go through, how security holes kind of work their way into the software, how hard it is to patch them, and that kind of stuff. So it is really good having that background, but yeah, kind of mixed feelings about it, I guess. Well, one interesting thing about that, at EROAD, every year we take some interns in from universities, which is a really, really good program. I quite enjoy it. And we always get one into my team as well. And one of the things I'm always interested in asking, because we do like a round of interns interviews when they come to us, I'm always interested in asking them what kind of things that are talked about at university, what sort of roles people are interested in taking and that kind of thing. And it's still, at least in New Zealand, I don't know what it's like over there, but still even now, universities are massively pushing software development for the tech industry, not really pushing all the other raft of roles there are from like cybersecurity, QA, product management. But there's so many things people can do, but that's the one that's most often talked about.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I wanted to dive in a bit deeper into that, if that's okay. So you mentioned, you wish you had mixed feeling, obviously, as you said, but maybe start off at cybersecurity from the beginning might have been better. But can you name a couple things that you think are invaluable in terms of things you've learned or things you've experienced as in the development space that really contributed to you and your career in cybersecurity?
Yeah, I think definitely an understanding of how the practices work and the people involved. Like there's some very unique people that work in the industry, and I've automatically got this connection with them because of the past that I've got that I don't think I would have had before. And just an understanding of coding. Like I've actually been doing it for a very long time. Like even before starting commercially. So yeah, I think definitely hugely valuable experience. Like I wouldn't actually change it, but I guess it's kind of, yeah, like I said, mixed feelings, a little bit of regret, but not too much.
Okay, thank you for that. And yeah, we might touch more on that going forward. But talking about that, what do you perceive as your biggest failure?
Yeah, probably assuming that everyone cares as much about cybersecurity as I do. I'm sure lots of people have run into that, and it's kind of a learning thing that it's a passion of mine, and I have made the mistake definitely of assuming that it's something that runs through everyone's minds, but it's actually not, and it's still not. And even though it's becoming more and more prevalent now, the attacks are just getting ever more complex, ever more of them. However, people are still not really, a lot of people are still not considering security and everything that they're doing, and it's sad. So that's probably one learning, that it's something you need to constantly reinforce and explain to people why this is a big deal.
Yeah, and you're talking about education of people about cybersecurity. In my experience, it's either someone forces you to do something, or something happens, something bad happens, and then you realize that you should have done something better. And yeah, it's a constant tension between what you have and what you want to have as the head of information security. What would you say your biggest accomplishment was, though?
Probably setting up cybersecurity practices at a couple of different companies now. So I actually really enjoy things like, probably unusual in this, but I quite like setting up new processes and practices and that kind of thing. And really just getting teams of people together and setting things up from nothing. I quite enjoy that sort of thing. So yeah, like just things like setting up the practice, getting the awareness out there, doing pilot groups with particular teams to get things working, taking a risk-based approach to security, because you can't do everything in one go, that sort of thing.
Yeah, and I think I saw that you at one point you were a founder of a company, and I think these are traits that are interchangeable and like transferable skills. And in my interviews with a bunch of CISOs in the industry, I've noticed that there are a lot of like common traits between founders and CISOs not between all CISOs obviously, but with some like, and what you just mentioned, the building of processes and setting up new processes, new procedures, and basically building a system and watching it grows and work. That's definitely something that, as a founder and as an entrepreneur, you can definitely relate to the joy of in that. So yeah, I imagine it wasn't a coincidence that at some point you founded a company then.
Yeah, true. Although I have to say it sounds more grandiose than it really was. So it was more a business that I was setting up around an idea I had on setting up secure communication suite. And I started down the journey, but all kinds of life distractions got in the way. It never really made it very far. So yeah, yes, it's true. I created a company, but there really wasn't much to it, unfortunately.
Well, as they say in that movie of, I believe he was one of your countrymen, Never Say Never. But in any case, sure. Let's. I wanted to dive in just a bit more. Given your background in development, what actually got you interested in cybersecurity?
Yeah, so I've been interested in computing from a really young age, actually. So like really early on, like I think I was about 8 years old. I started experimenting with computers. My parents got hold of a secondhand ZX81, and I started doing some coding on that, which I really enjoyed. Like it wasn't really good for gaming or anything like that, so it was more just kind of tweaking and figuring things out. And at the time, one of my sisters was really into tennis. She was very good at playing tennis, so I used to have to get dragged out to watch her play in different tennis tournaments and that kind of stuff. And while I was getting thoroughly bored, I'd be with my notepad just writing out code on paper, which I'd then go back home and start typing out on a computer. So that kind of started me on my computing journey. But I think it wasn't until secondary school, I think I was maybe 14, 15 at the time, that I really kind of figured out more around the security side of things and really got fascinated in it. So we had a small network of computers at the school. They were running Windows 3.11 for workgroups, and it was really locked down. I remember you couldn't do much in it. But I was determined to try to figure out a way around those controls. And what I discovered was there was a thing called Microsoft Object Packager. I don't think it exists anymore, but the idea of it was that you could embed any kind of application objects in another application. And so what I figured out was in Object Packager, you could type in a command line, which for me, I put in File Manager, and then you can embed that in Microsoft Write, and then it would give you this little icon. You could double click it, and then you could open File Manager, and then you could do whatever you wanted. So I started playing games on the school computers, and I taught one of my friends how to do it. And I just remember at the time the feeling of just being able to do something that no one else knew how to do, no one else had any idea about it, and that we just bypassed some control. Like we never did anything dodgy. It was literally just playing a game on the computer, but it was fun, and it really kind of got me interested, I think, in how security works at that point, or didn't work.
Great, that's a cool, nice story here. And and that transition that you've made from the development space into cybersecurity. If there are any, and I'm sure there are many, developers or software developers out there that want to make the transition, and I've actually spoken to a few that were very interested in cybersecurity, and they all ask me the same question, like, what do I do next? Like, how do I get into cybersecurity? How how does that transition look like? Any advice you can give out around that?
Yeah, first of all, follow your passion. I think, life is too short to do things that you don't enjoy. So yes, I thought I enjoyed coding. I still do to some extent, but I realized it wasn't my passion. So yeah, follow your passion. If security is something that you think is going to grab you, then follow that and really be prepared to embrace it. Be prepared to learn continuously, because it is a continuous learning thing, and own your journey. No one's going to do it for you. You've got to take that leap yourself and really push yourself. And I think for me, it was things like Try Hack Me and Hack the Box kind of got me into sort of understanding the offensive security side of things, and Try Hack Me has some things around defensive as well. Just kind of going through things like that to sort of upskill yourself a little bit. Yeah, that kind of thing, I guess.
Okay. And do you have any specific thoughts or feelings about where the CISO should be positioned in an organization? I mean, we both know that in many organizations, the CISO is part of the IT organization, and obviously that might create some clashes in some cases. And I know there are two schools of thoughts around that. One claims that the CISO is best positioned within the IT organizations, and the other school of thought argues that the CISO should be outside the IT organization. Any thoughts, any feelings about that?
Yeah, so first of all, I took a different approach at EROAD. So I actually got my job created. It was me that suggested it, that we set up this team at our company. And I very specifically isolated it from IT. That is mainly because the kind of organization I work for is a development and engineering company. So we are developing things. So it probably depends on what kind of company that you work for. But I felt it was really important that we focused on the security of what we are producing and hosting and providing to our customers, and not focusing too much on things like IT. So we've got an IT department. The head of IT focuses on security for our IT side of things. I am completely involved in everything that we develop and host and provide to our customers. And I think that separation is really useful. However, I guess, if you are part of IT, you're going to get a deeper awareness, which is obviously going to be valuable. Knowledge is always power. And I guess as well, if you're part of IT, you've probably got more influence on decisions as well. But yeah, I just feel like it obviously could be a distraction.
Yeah, thank you for that. And while making this transition from the development space into cybersecurity, although I see that you still have a lot of involvement in the development space as well, what did you do to educate yourself? Like, how did you learn the trades of the trade?
Yeah, probably a huge number of things, actually. One is podcasts. So I'm a big fan of podcasts. But both my wife and I own a pair of AirPods each, and you'll actually see us walking around the house as we're doing jobs around the house and that kind of thing. Just listening to podcasts as we're doing things is a great way of learning things there. Things like LinkedIn, joining security groups there and just seeing what kind of news comes up, making sure you're reading things all the time. I've got a security news app on my phone as well, which is specifically just cybersecurity news. Using your eyes and your ears, just making sure that you are actually aware of what's going on around you. And really picking up on the little things. And it's interesting, as the more you listen to podcasts and hearing other people talk about their journeys and the kind of things that they discover, the more things that you actually notice yourself, just generally. there's always this weird thing where you know where you hear someone say something once, you'd never heard of that thing before, and then all of a sudden you hear it all the time.
Yeah,
It's like that kind of thing. I think just also things that I talked about before. I'm a big fan of Hack the Box. I still use it regularly. I did OSCP last year as well. It's kind of upskilling and getting aware of what kind of attacks can be done, so that I can understand risks better and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. So, correct me if I'm wrong. You're more into on-the-job and hands-on training rather than like formal training, certifications, and things of that nature, correct?
Well, I mean, OSCP is a formal certification, but yeah, I think you need both. Like having the formal certifications on your CV is obviously going to help get you jobs,
Mm-hmm.
but you've got to do hands-on continuous learning, I think.
Yeah. So between the two, what would you say? Like more emphasis on the hands-on portion, though? Or I'm just trying to understand, like, what's your school of thought? There's no judgment here. I'm just trying to learn.
Yeah. For me, more on hands-on.
Okay.
I think education has its place, but self-continuous learning, I think, is more valuable actually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And is there one common myth about this profession that you wanted to address and debunk?
Yes, I've talked about hacking. I guess one thing is the role is not all about hacking. It's not even all about security monitoring. Or at least it shouldn't be. I think there's a movement, the shift left movement, and it is a really overused term, but I think it's underused properly. So whenever or most of the time I hear people talk about shift left security, they usually harp on about scanning code and static code analysis and that kind of thing. But to me, that's not shifting left. Shifting left a bit, but it's not enough. I think something that we need to get more and more involved in, particularly in my side of things when we're dealing with applications, is actually getting involved at design time. You've got to be doing threat modeling and actually getting there right up front with the architects as they're designing software and figuring out what things could go wrong before it's even happened, before anyone started coding anything. That's the cheapest time that you can solve a problem.
Yeah, I think I've had very limited, like I've seen a small number of organizations that are actually employing threat modeling and security design reviews and things of that nature. The most part, what I'm seeing is, as you said, like static analysis tools, dynamic tools, and penetration testing, obviously, but mostly the minimum possible. But it goes back to maturity of the organization and the budget that they
Sure.
have and what it is that they want to accomplish. But yeah, for sure, I agree with you that the earlier that you engage, the cheaper it is for an organization to deal with whatever potential issues that they might have. Shifting gears here and talking a bit about the role of the CISO in the industry. In your opinions, what are the main concerns that CISOs nowadays have?
I think largely security is actually a data problem. You've really got to get the right kind of data to make the right decisions, and I guess the same is true of any job. But in security, it's becoming more and more so. You've got so much that's happening around you. It may be applications being developed, it may be environments that are running, what's running on those environments, what versions of software that they're running, what third parties that you're working with, who's hosting what. There's so many things to know about, and you've got to get that data in the right place so that you can make the good decisions on it. I think having that data first and foremost has got to be the priority, and then you work from there, getting good response programs in place, incident response playbooks. Actually, another thing as well, if you supplying stuff to customers always want a good story on security. So often I'll get in front of a security team from a prospective customer, and they're always asking me on what kind of things do EROAD do for security and that sort of stuff. So it's important to get something good to be able to talk about that.
Mm-hmm. And in your opinion, what are the most important skills that CISOs nowadays should have?
I think probably the ability to cut through all of the talk and the noise. So, like I said, there is data. There's a hell of a lot of it. There's a lot of talk. I think you need to quickly cut through to the root of what it is that you need to understand. Because you need to quickly understand what's happening in your company, what possible risks that you've got. So yeah, really the ability to hear what multiple people are saying, read multiple things, but very quickly cut down to, okay, this could be a potential risk because of factor X or factor Y or whatever. Being able to do risk assessments, delegation. I think also just the ability to think like an adversary, like always being able to think, this here is being set up in this particular way. Okay, so how could an attacker abuse that in a way that we're not intending it to be used?
Mm-hmm. And in your opinion, where do we see this role going to? Like, if you look at the CISO role now and, look into the future, or like look at your crystal ball 5 years from now, what type of profile would we see there?
Yeah, so it was interesting, like what you said at the beginning around traditionally it's been the IT space.
Yeah.
And I think that's true. The path I've taken is definitely a bit more unusual, but I think it's going to become more and more common. I believe that's the way things are going. If you're working for a company that's producing something, be it software, be it hardware, you need to, I think having that understanding of the development journey is really, really valuable. I think we're going to see more people coming from that side of things.
Mm-hmm. So you're saying more people coming from the development side of the house, basically, into the CISO role. Okay.
I think so. I think that would be really welcome for the industry as well, just giving more perspectives and stuff.
Got it. Any thoughts about business skills as part of the CISO roles in the future?
I guess kind of the same sort of things that I talked about before, just that I think the ability to cut through the noise and really understand risks quickly.
Mm-hmm. Okay, got it. And in your opinion, what will we see in the cybersecurity world next? Is it more around AI, machine learning, automation, or is it something completely different in your opinion?
Yeah, I think that we've got an immediate or very close to becoming a problem, which is a lot of companies are relying on cyber insurance right now. And I'm hearing more and more noise that cyber insurance may become a thing of the past. It's just becoming too expensive for insurance companies to offer it. Payouts are high, complexity of attacks are high, prevalence is high. And things like insuring yourself for a ransomware attack or what have you, I think could become a thing of the past. I think it's that if that becomes the case, a lot more investment needs to go into actually prevention and response than has been happening. But you can't hide behind insurance; it's just not going to cut it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so less reliance on insurance, more on prevention and response. Got it.
Yeah.
In your opinion, have budgets changed anywhere from, pre-pandemic to post-pandemic?
Yes, definitely. I think obviously one thing that we saw was a lot of people working from home, and immediately companies needed to adapt to that. The money needed to be provided to very quickly be able to adapt, to handle remote work, more cloud adoption, that kind of thing, and the security that goes with that. However, I guess the other side of it is that, of course, companies, for the most part, have less money right now, but budgets are tighter. We're all going through, companies the world over, economic issues at the moment, and so I think we're having to do more for less, and it's just being smarter about security while not forgetting how important it is.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Have you seen any reduction, like in the amount of SaaS vendors that some organizations consume? Because from what I've seen, throughout the pandemic, teams have grown. The security operation has grown tremendously, and as a subsequent result, there's been an introduction of a myriad of a number of new tools, SaaS applications, and whatnot. And I'm not going to say for the most part. For sometimes you do see that a lot of these newly acquired tools are not really being utilized. So do you think that's going to be under review right now and cut back?
Yeah, I think definitely there's and the same happened for us as well. I think lots of companies went through this massive learning journey. We'd all been through this unprecedented event that just couldn't have been predicted, and we were all just thinking fast, getting this tool and that tool to be able to do our jobs as effectively remotely as we could have done in the office. And I think some really good things came from that, by the way. I think that a lot of companies, and I know EROAD has, but I think a lot of other companies as well, have learned that you can be as productive remotely as you can in the office. And you've got to get the right tools for that. But at the same time, there's obviously things that we had experimented with, like anyone, that probably can be cut back on now.
Mm-hmm. And a follow-up question on, what we'll see in the cybersecurity world next. What would you define as innovation in this space?
I think, just basically going to the definition, really, just to think, any new way of doing something, be it technology, be it a process. I think the shift left movement I would consider as innovative. I think even if other companies are doing it already, if your organization are not doing it, I think there's still some sort of level of innovation in there, and I think we need to do more of that. I think the security community needs to be sharing our learnings with each other and getting better. Like I mentioned before, attacks are getting more and more prevalent, more complex, harder to fight off. And I think we need to club together and really understand what works, what doesn't work, and get more involved like that.
Okay. And, for the last portion of this podcast, I always like to ask just a couple of questions about our favorite topic, the relationship between a CISO and a vendor. Let's assume you are a vendor and you want to engage and, with a potential customer. Let's say you're a security vendor, you want to engage with a potential customer. What is it that you would do? How would you go about building that relationship?
Sure. I think first and foremost, you've got to understand their business. Don't come with a generic solution and just assume that it's going to work for everyone, because it's not. Like, everyone's organizations are different. There's similarities, of course, but I think in order to get the best uptake in what it is that you're offering, it really helps to best understand the company that you're trying to sell to, and what they can get out of what it is that you're doing, and really tailoring your messaging and your service to that. I think if you're not doing that, you're going to fail.
Okay. Thank you. And yeah, that resonates a lot with similar answers that I've gotten so far. So basically, in other words, what is it that you're looking for in a vendor? You specifically, Jeremy?
Yeah, pretty much the same thing. A tailored service for us. We've worked with organizations in the past, just to give an example, where for things like password policy, for example, they'll provide us with a security report and say, oh, your passwords are not meeting this particular password policy, and they'll talk about that and go through it all in the report. And then we say to them, well, that's not the password policy we follow here. We're following this security standard. And it's just small things like that. You want the vendor to take into account what it is that your company does, and to talk your language, not talk some arbitrary language that they've come up with.
Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But in other words, you're talking about the fact that, and this is just my interpretation, but, the vendors should not consider you as just a walk-in wallet. They need to consider you as a business partner. They need to learn about you. They need to invest more time in learning about you, about the business, and about your real needs. And only then, if there's a fit, they need to reach out and basically say, hey, we think you might have this problem, and we might be able to offer a solution. That's pretty much what I've heard. Is that pretty much?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Got it. Anyone you want to name drop in terms of influential people to you, or people that you look up to in the industry?
I think first of all, I get ideas and inspiration from everyone around me. I don't think there's necessarily specific people. Like I think everyone has something to offer. I said that we employ interns every year, and they come up with fresh, interesting, exciting ideas. And sometimes there are things that you can get from them. I have a lot of respect for people that give back to the community and produce feeds, like particularly things like YouTube videos. So a couple of examples, IPSEC and CryptoCat. I really enjoy their YouTube videos and how they kind of educate people. If we're going to talk about a particular person outside of security, I would say Steve Jobs. I think a huge admirer of what he's done. I'm also a big Apple fan, but I think just his ability to produce what people want before they knew that they wanted it, actually creating markets when there wasn't one before, and getting the best out of people. I don't know if you read the Steve Jobs biography. It was really, really interesting. That's a great book. And I think one of the things that came out of that was just how he was really good at getting the best out of people. So people would come to him and say, oh, this can't be done. And he would say, well, you're not thinking about it the right way. Think differently. It can be done. Make it happen. And he would really push people, and they would achieve amazing things that they didn't even know that they could do before, because of the way that he works through it. So yeah, a lot of respect for the kind of things that he did, I think.
Great. What's the best way to connect with you online?
LinkedIn is always good, but prefer not emails. I do, like anyone, I get a lot of spam in my work email, and I just can't address all of it. So I do tend to ignore anything that's external to the company, unless I'm expecting it to come through. But yeah, LinkedIn is good.
Okay. And for final question before we wrap this up, if money was never an issue, what would you do with your life?
Travel. Now that we can travel again, and hopefully that stays the case. I think I've always had this ambition that I want to go to every continent in the world, including Antarctica. Actually, especially Antarctica. It's always been. I think it's a fascinating area. I'd love to go over there sometime. So I've been to most continents. I've still not been to South America. I've not been to Africa or Antarctica. So I want to visit those.
Well, you're relatively close, right? New Zealand is probably maybe the closest country there is to Antarctica, if I remember correctly.
That's true. Yeah. We have a lot of expedition ships and stuff that go from New Zealand. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Cool. Yeah, I mean, with that, let me just thank you for taking the time today, Jeremy. Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping your answers would resonate, make sense, and educate some of our listeners. Enjoyed having you here, and thank you again for the conversation. Any final words?
Yeah, but thanks very much for your time, Ben. I really appreciate it. I think it's been an interesting discussion.
Thank you.